Hello, all. Welcome to episode 2 of New England Prevails. I must admit something. Jake and I had originally recorded episode 2, lasted a bit over an hour. But it seems we have been attacked by the most devilish triumvirate of the internet. We've seen traces now of the Russians, mostly through Guccifer. A clan in Wyoming called the Cheyenne Shakedown. We've seen their bit trails attack our recordings now. And finally, traces of foul play by a group out in Saskatchewan, up in Canada, those squirrely devils. So we are diligently working to recover the lost tapes, but for now, we want to get this message and info to you as soon and speedily and seductively as possible. So I will just quickly recap what we discussed in the first half hour before we launch into the actually recorded portion of the cast. We started with a recap of the debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And to my surprise, there was quite a consensus that Trump didn't really need to apologize for his comments on the hot mic tape. The reason, mostly, is because he's so boisterous, he's so bombastic, and that this language is such a non-issue in comparison to all of the issues that the United States and the world faces. Just saying that I spoke inartfully, I'm sorry if I offended anyone, and leaving it at that, which he mostly did, but we think he went a little too far with the apology. Because, if he says something outrageous in the future, which he is very likely to do, he will then be pressured to backtrack, or will you apologize for that statement? Once you allow the apologies to pour out, you lose a bit of credibility. So we went back and forth on quite a bit, and Hillary absolutely got trashed by the moderators and Trump during most of the debate. She definitely lost footing, and he put the Republicans in a very difficult position. So we're really interested to see where the race plays out from there. But we thought it was a very entertaining evening. Us rabid New Englanders will discuss in this next segment. You will see the context of the conversation is really about the character of the regions around the world, and how culture influences the structure and nature of government, not just at the local and regional level, like in New England, but also at the national level, in China, in Russia, in the United States broadly, Western Europe. And that the character of democracies and the idealism we surround with that structure may not be the best thing for most cultures, or they're not ready for it, or they don't respect Western values. This led to a great conversation on immigration and globalism, and the real threats that we face with assimilation. And you just have to look at the disorderly eruption of violence and culture clashes in Western Europe during the migration crisis. And you have to look at Trump's words pretty carefully and honestly and say, you know what? It looks like we didn't understand the cultural impact that this would have. And these are societies that have not dealt with immigration for years and years and years, unlike the United States. And we're still, God knows, working through those culture clashes, but we are far more adaptable to new people coming to our country because we share cultural values and identity, not necessarily history and ethnicity. Swedes and Muslims have far more difference than Americans and Muslims, for example. Simply because we can have a culture and intellectual conversation. Theirs is about the heterogeneous identity of that country and the history which with it brings. So the setup for this coming conversation is about the importance of democracies and what that leads to, and the empathy that different cultures should have for each other when they're migrating across borders. But it also is very telling because we discuss the importance of hardship And again, a common theme on New England prevails, how the weather and how you need to be as strong as your environment, and that may have something to do with the virtues espoused in New England. But the importance of hardship to create a culture of accountability and the kind of fluffiness and softness that that has created. And talking about how that fluffiness came about, where we went wrong, and so we discussed that in detail. So we will start off. You will come right into the bridge where we're discussing strongmen, democracies, talking about Russia and China, and it should lead into a very fascinating conversation about the world we live in, and as of course. The critical importance and brilliance that is the New England people and region. So enjoy episode 2. Uh, Despite the Wyoming, Russian, Canadian triumvirate of hell, of New England prevails.
The initiation of force is a bad thing. But there are certain people who might choose to pay more tax even if they get less benefits because it has some other benefit to them.
Well, but that's diving into fiscal policy. I'm saying the need for a strong man, a centralized government. I think Russia and China being the penultimate examples. Yeah, they don't have a history of democracy, and I don't think democracy properly understood the American system or even a parliamentary system. It's easily influenced to corruption. It's hard. Federalism's tough for any culture, especially ours. We're still trying to figure it out. At the same time, the monarchs of the 1700s and before, the emperors, they all faded away towards decentralization. And those countries that still have strong men are still the worst performing ones. I mean, they still have the worst human rights records. Down in South America, they're still poor as fuck. I'm not saying that democracy or creating a republic necessarily creates more freedom, because there are instances of it being corrupted. But it certainly gives people a better chance at self-determination. Look at New England, from its founding, and we talked about it last time, with the town hall meeting structure. Even if it all goes to fuckity fuck, at least everybody had a chance or an opportunity to speak their mind, organize, and form an opinion for the group. At least that happened. To just say, well, there's no way a group of us could figure it out, so we might as well let Beijing, organize everything. I don't think that that's necessarily the right answer either. So.
No, my point is that how do you put it properly? I think one of the big mistakes of neoconservatism and of the Clinton Foundation and all of these sorts of globalist agendas is that there is a universal system that's going to work right now. There are some things that are good for every single country. Not beating the living shit out of your children is a good thing to spread to every country you possibly can, because in any system, it will benefit the people there generally over the long run. But I think there may be certain things that, whether they're based on IQ or whether they're based on certain types of empathy or what have you, as long as the history shows, Germans have been very German. As long as we can go back, the Chinese have been doing kind of similar stuff. The world has changed in many ways. The technology has changed. Their material existence has changed. Even the people themselves look different than they did in some places. But for whatever reason, whether it's just culture is that powerful or some combination of culture and genetics, I think we're sort of trying to fight back the ocean when we try to struggle against these things. And I think we're all better off. The people of China are better off when the people of New England are New Englandy. And the people of New England are better off when the people of China are China-y. And it's fine.
Sure. No, yeah. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
That's our adventure in Iraq was an attempt at some level, not 100%, but part of it was about democratizing them.
Right. The regime change stuff. I totally understand that. But public diplomacy is still pretty valuable. Engagement, cultural, not integration, but like, you know, artists and missions and folks that go over to other countries, like exposure to other cultures and talk and like having a freedom of ideas conversation is a good thing. That's a positive thing. Like that should be encouraged and done.
Oh yeah, no, I think where it goes over the line is when you get to people like Soros, who are like sowing seeds of destruction all over the place because they want certain systems to fall.
Yeah,
and that's cruel. I think it's short-sighted, and it just. I think for New England, because we're not really a people that care so much about ourselves. Like New England was the bedrock of the abolitionist movement for completely selfless reasons. There was no good reason for the people of England, or the people of New England for that matter, to advocate against slavery. It didn't hurt them really. By the time the Civil War was going on, New England was so far advanced compared to the South that it was kind of embarrassing. And the English people spent a huge amount of money trying to eliminate slavery from the rest of the world. And I think the argument that really holds some sway with New England people is that you can try to influence people, you can try to tell them how you do things, you can write books about it and publish them in whatever language you want. But at the end of the day, until we are all living in free societies, you're better off like letting people do what they're doing and being proud of what you're doing, because it will benefit everybody in the long run. And that to some degree we have to pursue our experiments separately. That there are certain levels of influence that are not acceptable. And I think that's true state to state. It's true town to town. It's true family to family. I mean, if
don't tell me how to parent my kids, right? I mean, that's
right. If families treated each other the way that Soros and the Clinton Foundation and the Bush Doctrine treated other countries, there would be fistfights constantly. And it would just be obviously immoral and gross. But because it's happening far away and because the consequences are far removed, we're just like, people don't want to talk about it. And they don't want to think about it because it's scary. But I think for the goal of making New England the best place it can be, which ultimately improves the quality of life for human beings everywhere, we have to start accepting, like, we're doing our thing, and the extent to which we focus on other people doing their thing is the extent to which we don't. Very fine line that's very easy to cross, where you go from trying to help other people to hurting them to force them into doing what you want to do. I mean, it's I think it's in, I can't remember whether it's in Civil Disobedience or what, but one of the things that Thoreau said was that, like, the most dangerous force in the world is somebody trying to do you good. That there's no limit to the harm that you can cause somebody when you believe yourself to be helping them. And you see this with the government trying to help poor people and trying to help minorities.
So that was my question. It's like, so then why is New England so blue and defending this model of like, well, I know it's like, because it's kind of antithetical to the character of the region. It's so blue at the like local and city level and certainly the state level that, like, how in the world do we permit and advocate for these interventions in gun rights and health care and in poverty alleviation programs and all these wealth transfers that, like, we're probably the only region that can afford it, and that's why we're so blue. But it's so backwards. It's so against how we got to where we were in the first place.
Public education is how we got there.
Well, just an investment in education. Public, yes, but like.
No, I mean the brainwashing of public universities and high schools and even middle schools and primary schools. That's why New England changed.
Okay.
I mean, it's a great question for the Jews as well, and it's one that what's his name? That conservative Jewish guy who has that great YouTube channel. I can't remember his name.
Prager?
Yeah, Dennis Prager.
Dennis Prager, yeah.
One of the things that he's always said, for almost as long as he's been in the public eye, is that Jewish people ought to espouse the values that they live. That Jewish families are like the height of conservatism. They are culturally, economically, socially just about as conservative as you can possibly be. But they advocate, in a large degree, these kind of liberal, nonsensical policies. And I don't mean liberal in the neoliberal sense. I mean in the American political sense.
Right.
Leftist policies that are the same things that people were advocating in Nazi Germany. You have these people who, by force of will and intelligence, have maintained their culture in the face of the most ridiculous odds for generations. But they advocate publicly, oftentimes, the same policies that would be used to destroy them.
Right.
And so when you hear politicians from Israel talking about how a wall is a terrible idea from Donald Trump when they have the most walls per capita of any country in the world,
right.
It's weird. And I think it's one thing, like, if I could will away one negative result of what we've been doing for the past, 70-something years in New England, it would be that public education, middle-class bullshit about, we have to go help the poor, starving retards of wherever. No, you don't, because you don't know how to help them. You're going to do more harm than good. And you should be helping your own damn family. There are amazing human beings. There's a mixed martial arts fighter who's now dedicated himself to helping the pygmies in the Congo. He's a beautiful human being. Fantastic guy. But he doesn't know shit. He's had to learn a lot of hard lessons, and he's been to the hospital with malaria, and he's been bitten by snakes and all kinds of horrible shit. And he's doing good. But in the long run, he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Right. And he could be doing way more damage than he knows.
So is it just people are lazy or bored and they're like, well, I feel like I should help, or we should help these unfortunate people, and there is a role for charity in society and reaching out, but where does that line of wanting to help people less fortunate than you, less educated, less clothed, hungrier than you, and then going over I guess that is the line, because once you start involving the state, and kind of going back to the Dennis Prager stuff, is when you begin cataloging and forcing the dependency on them, saying, no, this you should want this because these are resources you didn't have before, and these people are willing to give them to you. And regardless of your view on taxation as theft and coercion, which I think it is, but even if you eliminate that, the fact that you are going into people's lives and saying, here are your resources to live. It sounds generous, but look at the results. I mean, Trump's right. I mean, what's gone on in the inner cities, the real, not redone Chicago, not revitalized Inner Harbor, Baltimore, but the real inner cities, are dilapidated, decaying, and these people can't even qualify for tax deductions, Section 8 housing. These people they don't even have the time to wait in line to get the benefits that they need.
Right.
So they're often just squatters and doing worse. And it's not just blacks. It's poor whites, it's poor Asians, it's poor Hispanics. I mean, it's easy to point at one community of color, but these policies do everybody absolutely no good.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it was Thomas Sowell, who's one of my favorite living economists and historians. I mean, possibly one of my favorites, living or dead. But one of the things he said is that after everything that the black community, if you can call them that, has suffered through slavery, through Jim Crow, through all this shit, the only thing powerful enough to destroy the black family was welfare. There were all these amazing stories of black men trudging through snow barefoot, to get to their families after the end of slavery. They just, like, unbelievably devoted fathers. But as soon as you start to get the welfare check, it doesn't matter what color your skin is. It doesn't matter where you're from. It's a brain virus.
Right. Well, I would also add that, like, the ramp up of the war on drugs and the complete bastardization of the criminal justice system, like, equally destroyed. Right. I mean, they go hand in hand with, like, psychology, but in terms of stripping away fathers and mothers from their kids, like, that's a really intense compliment to that policy as well.
The fundamental force at work here is just human weakness. And I don't mean, like, compared to Jesus or something like that. I just mean that, like, all human beings are weak, and when they're given the opportunity to not have to take responsibility for their moral decisions, they pretty much take it.
Right.
And so the desire to help other people without doing it your damn self. I mean, this is the thing, and this is something that I say to white intellectuals all the time. If you really care, then you go do it. If you really care, if you're so concerned about the people of wherever, or of, like, whatever culture, or whatever the issue may be, if you're so concerned, then why are you talking to me about it? Why aren't you fixing it your damn self?
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth is, they're just looking for virtue signaling. They're looking for everybody else to say, oh, yes, you did a great thing by contributing $50 to buy somebody a cow in a third world country. Like, that's not a moral good. There's no positive thing actually happening there. All there is ignorance and laziness. And until people accept that the only way that you can do good is by you going and doing it with your own hands and seeing the results and taking the feedback and being, like, genuinely empathetic for another human being and letting go part of your ego. Unless you're willing to do that, then you have nothing positive to contribute to somebody else.
Right.
If you're not willing to put your name on your YouTube video, then shut the fuck up. If you're not willing to, like, go into the inner city and go help people, go, like, help single mothers instead of paying them, go help these guys who are getting out of prison for stupid charges find a job. If you aren't willing to go do it, then giving them money is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And that's it's one of the reasons why I think New England is the only place that's really worth focusing on, is because it's the winter, that kind of cold, ever-present menace is the key to this thought process, where, like, you have to be as cold and as calculated and as vicious as your environment. You don't have a choice. And so whether it's people in northern England and Scotland or Germany or wherever, like, even the people in Canada, as silly as they may be with Trudeau, there's a kind of cold, calculating goodness that comes from that, where you
do you think that's why the Midwest is sometimes, and I hate to say this with equivalence, but sometimes just on parity with New England in that kind of a way?
Yeah, I think that I personally don't understand and don't have a lot of, I don't know, sympathy, I guess, with the German and Northern European culture. But I respect the hell out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, like, one of the old metrics for development and for, I think, intelligence is butter and milk production. Because it's one of those things that no matter what level of civilization you're at, no matter, like, you can be using Stone Age tools and still be producing milk and butter if you are willing to do the work and you're willing to make the investment. If you can see further than a few months down the road, you can do that. And so going back hundreds, if not thousands of years, in different pockets all over the world, you see German people moving around and making milk and butter. And it's just one of those things. In the South, the places where they were making beer and milk and cheese were almost universally German immigrants. Occasionally New England immigrants. But in one of Thomas Sowell's essays, he talks about how Vermont, despite the fact that it's a terrible place for cows, and there were very few people and very few cows there compared to most other parts of the country where they were producing dairy, was dramatically outproducing almost the entirety of the South. And it's just nuts. And I think that there's a certain kind of weakness and a certain kind of, to me, it's just not having empathy for other people. You can't care about other people honestly without being a certain type of cold and calculating. Because if you're a surgeon and you care about people so much that you refuse to cut them, you're the worst surgeon ever. You have to, if you want to do good for other people, you have to be willing to say no. You have to be willing to have standards. You have to be willing to reflect on your own decision making and be self-critical. You have to hate yourself sometimes for your mistakes because you know how brutal it is. And that, I think, is just too much to ask of a lot of the rest of the country. I mean, it's not going to happen. And so one of the reasons why I think it's important for New England to develop an identity and for us to start keeping people out and start advocating for our own, like, the responsibilities that we've kind of shirked for a long time, is that in order to actually do good, not just to be neutral, but to do good works in the world, you have to accept certain truths about morality and about the physical world that require a certain type of hardness and a certain level of intelligence that I think I don't see it anywhere else. I see it sometimes in conversations I've had with some people in China, with some things that the Japanese government will do periodically. You get random people that you run into will demonstrate these virtues occasionally, but it takes a lot of hard will that I think is just lacking at this point. I don't think we're going to find it anywhere else.
And as we say every time, just grow a fucking spine and the world will be a better place.
Right. I mean, it's, the more I look at the rest of the world, the more I think, like, the four virtues are pretty much it. If you can achieve, like, courage and temperance and, like, it's just, we know all of this stuff, right? Like,
yeah, and it's in our bones. Yeah.
Well, but everybody knows it, right? Like, everybody all over the world, as long as they're functional as a human being, like they're clocking in at like above 80 on the IQ scale, like they can put words together. They all know if you get them alone, it doesn't even matter what culture they're from, they will all explain to you, like, yeah, this is what's good and this is what's bad. The problem is that they don't have the cold, hard will to do it. Become a part of the political process without really earning it. It's partly that the education system has gone to complete shit. It's partly the welfare state. But I think there's a harshness to the truth about the world, about good and evil, that has kind of gone out of people. They can't quite bring themselves to that point. It's just like the world is too fluffy.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, too many people, want the world, that want life to be easier, want it to be fair, want it to be fun, and
right.
while you can strive for those things, to ignore the reality and the hardship of what's actually going on, and the cruelty that you see overseas. I mean, in America, you have it the best in terms of safety and fun and ease of life, work-life balance. Like, there's just such a refusal to accept that hardship still exists and that struggle is still real, and like real struggle, not, what Netflix movie can I watch tonight, but
the struggle is real.
The struggle is so real, and not are we going to go apple picking or not because it's fall, but like, oh, what happens when your pipes break, or your kid breaks a leg, and so you forego that money to pay for that instead of like Christmas presents or something. Like those things are real.
Well, but I think it's not just that they're real, it's that they're good.
Yeah.
That
they force you to choose, and choice breeds good behavior.
When I was living and working in China, I started a little like English after school tutoring thing with a guy that I met in China. And very quickly, we started realizing that like the effect that we were having on kids was drastic, and that eventually the thing that we complained about to each other was not like, oh, we need more money, oh, we need more time, oh, we need resources. No, we would complain that we didn't have any competition. We would sit down to dinner after like teaching for a solid 10 hours on a weekend and just look at each other and be like, God damn, we just need someone to kick our ass.
Yeah.
Like all we need is some other group of dudes to figure out a better way to do it than we're doing it and show us up in a big way.
Right. Force us to compete. Yeah.
Right.
Hold us
and
accountable.
So that was painful. That was horrible. And so we just realized, like, look, we're going to have to compete with ourselves. That's the only thing we can do. We just have to have higher standards.
Yeah.
But I think that's after living in a part of China where there wasn't really winter, and now living here in Denver, when somebody tells me that it's going to be cold the next week, I'm happy. I want to be cold. I want to feel like there's danger in the world, that there's something like scary out there.
Get out of the bubble. That's yeah.
And I think if you're the people who are willing to do that, whether they're starting a business or whether they're kind of struggling through new worlds philosophically or politically or what have you, the people who are pushing against real challenges, the people who are being called racist, the people who are being targeted for abuse on the internet, those are the rare few who are taking up new challenges.
Yeah.
But the old challenges are still valid. They're still good.
But that's the beauty of Trump, right? Like to tie everything back. Like regardless if he wins or loses, like his presence, his speech, his thoughts, as crazy as they can be, they're forcing discomfort into people who think that the world should be comfortable. And I think that's a good thing. I think, forcing folks who have never had to confront real discomfort in their life, or even if they had, like if they're triggered by something he says, like, yeah, I mean, it would be better not to be reminded of hardship. But that's how you grow. That's how you get better. And to suffocate it away, I don't think does anybody any favor. Like, I need a free speech zone, or I don't want to hear that, or those ideas are backwards. Like, maybe they are. Maybe they're the worst ideas in the world. But you're not hearing them doesn't help anybody. It only keeps you in your bubble. And that's and New England really needs to, I think that they're in their bubble right now, and they need to get out of it. They need to get out of the fluffy igloo and realize, no, it's a blizzard outside, and get back to shoveling, get back to doing what made you great in the first place.
Yeah, and I think like what's so funny to me is that when people, even the softest of soft shite people in like California and wherever, like in their moments of honesty, when they like wake up in the middle of the night and they're sweating and they're like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? They grab for challenge and pain and suffering. Like all these people who are going down to South America and doing ayahuasca and all this stuff, that's like hardcore psychological Jedi mind torture. Like these are people like the sweat lodges and all this shit. That's hardcore. That's a serious desire to take on a challenge and win. People who are doing fire walking, people who are doing CrossFit, all these people getting into mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu, that is trial by fire. And that is an inborn, especially with men, but I think more and more women are getting in touch with that side of themselves, which is a beautiful thing. They're realizing, like, I can't be successful if I don't feel threatened. I can't be prosperous if I don't feel like I could lose. And the more comfortable people get, the more wild they get with their desire to, like, not the desire to suffer, but the desire to overcome suffering. And all these dudes in their parents' basements playing video games. What are they playing? They're playing war games. They're not playing, like, Organize the Cupcakes. They're simulating war. They're simulating being shot and stuff like that because they know at some level, like, it's the only way, man. The only way to get the harvest is to sow the seeds. And we all get it. I don't think that's even a cultural thing. I don't think it's a racial thing. What is cultural is willingness to do it.
Right.
We all get it. Everybody knows this. And the reason why people hate Trump so much is because he looks them square in the face and says, you're a lazy piece of shit. We all know it. You know it. Stop being a lazy cunt. And that's...
and that's really the slogan at the end of the day.
Yeah. Because we all know. Nobody's surprised by this. It's not like you can't red pill people with, like, hey, if you want something, you have to earn it. Nobody's shocked by that shit.
Right.
It's just they don't want to do it.
Right.
They don't want to. And so they bitch and they whine, and because they can get resources that way, they just keep doing it. But, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why things like Black Lives Matter and all that stuff, the reason they get so extreme is because they know, like, they're not Martin Luther King. They don't have a real struggle ahead of them. So they have to try to bring the struggle on themselves. They have to go out and fight the cops, even though the cops have done nothing to them, because they need the struggle. They need to feel like they're earning it.
Or that it matches, that there's some moral equivalence. I mean, I feel like Black Lives Matter has some legitimate grievance against cops killing blacks, but, like, cops kill more white people than black people. So, like, there is a fault. Like, it's trying to create an enemy as big as there was in the 1960s, and it's not there, and so the level of sympathy, I think, is not there for the movement.
Well, the real problem is that Mexican immigrants don't have white guilt.
Mm.
And Asian Americans don't give a fuck about slavery.
Right.
So, like, yeah, you can push those buttons with white people, but once the mayor of your town's Hispanic or Chinese, good luck. Like, you're not going to get shit from them. They're not going to help you at all because they don't even like you. Like, this is the really ridiculous thing about all the racial stuff and cultural stuff especially is, like, people bitch and moan all day about the United States. The United States is the only country that listens. The West in general, but, like, Europe is basically non-existent at this point. The only country that's going to listen to your grievances about whatever is the United States. And so that, like, it's just preposterous. And it comes from this weak-willed unwillingness to, like, kind of rock up and just do the damn work.
Yeah.
And that's, I think if you're working hard on good deeds, if you're doing real work in the world, whether it's, doing the electrical wiring for a new hospital, or, like, whatever, digging wells, whatever the work may be, if you're doing real work, good work for other people, and you're not self-obsessed constantly, then when somebody comes and tells you about, like, welfare and stuff, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
Because you're already doing the work, you're already helping other people. What more do you have to give?
Right.
If you're working hard,
it's the dignity of work. Yeah, that's the.
I think that a huge part of it is just they're not going to do it.
Right.
So we have to, like, the question is, do we wait for that collapse, or do we start saying, like, hey, as New Englanders, we can see that this is going to happen to everybody. Maybe it's time for us to start, like, not necessarily building walls exactly, but, like, let's start talking about our backup plan.
Yeah.
Let's start putting in our American retirement package here. And start thinking, like, okay, if the shit really hits the fan, what do we want?
Sure. Well, and we can meditate on that for next week. Which could be juicy.
What's going on?
Yeah.
The polling data is going to be interesting.
I don't believe in polls anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird to see how they deal with it. It's gonna be weird to see how, like, local politicians are starting to talk about this stuff. Who was it? Oh, Governor LePage in Maine said that Trump needs to show more authoritarian power. It's gonna be interesting, folks.
Let's give it to him. Give the people what they want.
Oh God.
Alrighty. Well, should we close it up?
On that hopeful note, this has been Jordan and Jake, And as always,
New England prevails.